and that's where we will have our couple of graduate students we know from all different fields come and pretty much just be there for you guys to answer any questions. So we'll have 2 physical therapy students. Just you can ask your questions today for our physical therapy student today, or you can save them for next week and get more in-depth answer. Our physical therapy student today goes to Loma Linda. The 2 students I asked to come in next week, they go to Cal State Long Beach, and the other one goes to Chapman, I believe. So you can kind of ask specific questions about those universities. We also have students one student who is currently in med school, and Noah himself, he's looking to apply to med school, so he's going to be there to answer all your questions about med school apps. I'll be there to answer any questions about master's programs, specifically within kinesiology or within almost any other field I can probably answer. And then Alejandro, one of our other exec board members, will be there along with a few other people to answer what it's like to apply to PhD school. So that'll be there for you guys. The only way this event is going to work is if you guys come with questions. So be ready to ask kind of anything you want, and it's really going to be run by you guys. So that'll be next week, February the 18th at 5 to 7. And then the following week, we'll have our research and internship colloquium, which we'll have Dr. Cotter come and he'll talk about all the different opportunities we have within research and within internship in like physical therapy clinics, cardiac rehab clinics, and he's going to kind of talk about where you guys can get involved there. So really exciting stuff for kinesiology students this month. So hopefully you guys can make the rest of these. And again, if not, you can't attend for any reason, they will be recorded and thrown onto our YouTube page so anyone can access them. Another tidbit I guess we didn't really share, but these are all free and you guys are more than welcome to invite like anyone else you know. So even if they don't go to Cal State Long Beach, maybe you have a best friend who goes to Fullerton, our rival school, they're really interested in PT as well, you can totally have them come and join. Just send the link their way and they can check it out as well. So that's it for next month, I think. I guess we're still waiting for a couple of our guest speakers. So while we wait, does anyone have any questions about upcoming events, our organization in general? We're just so good at informing you guys. You don't even have questions. I love that. That's what I always say to my students. If no one has questions, I'm like, wow, I'm a really good teacher. Like, thanks. Okay, the second thing we want to bring up then is you guys don't really have any questions is we are still looking for potential board members. So in our general meeting, if you guys weren't able to attend, we ran through all the different board positions we have, and we're really hoping to get a couple of you newer members or just anyone who's not graduating to come and shadow us this month. I think almost everyone on the exec board is graduating. So we will need a brand new exec board to make sure this club still runs. And the easiest way we came up with to do that is if some of you guys shadow us, that means you join us in our exec meetings. You won't have any work. You're just going to hang out and see what it's like. And then that way you guys kind of know what each position does. So that way next semester, when we are electing new board members, it's a really easy transition. So that way we can get some people on the board. So if you guys are interested, I'll throw our email into the chat and you guys can just reach out to our email, just be like, hey, I don't really know what position I'd like on the board, but I kind of do want to check out your exec meetings, see what they're like, and we can definitely get you guys in on those. So if you guys are interested, please email us. I think this is our email. Okay. Someone on the board member, like, double check me, but I think that's right.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think that's it. Noah, is your person here yet?
Not yet. They're still a little. It's not the norm, you know, but as I think everybody's dealing with, it is just weird times. So hopefully we can extend a little bit of courtesy for that, which we all are doing at the moment. But like Dom said, if you guys have any interest or curiosity as to what you know, different positions on our executive board do or are responsible for, please reach out, let us know. Feel free to shop around and kind of see which one you like the best if you are considering you know, a leadership position, and let us know, because we're always open to new people, new faces, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, since we still have some time, let's get a poll going. So who here, go ahead and just like do the reaction with, you can do the clapping hands or whatever you want to do. Who is here for athletic training? Alexa, very cool. Okay. Are you our only one? Okay, Dylan, you're here for athletic training. Nice. Okay, so the obvious one then. Who's here for physical therapy? Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, Dylan, you're here for both. You're any and all. Okay, so a lot of PT people. Awesome. For those of you in PT, are any of you applying yet or starting your application process this come summer? Does anyone want to unmute and share?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said before in our last meeting that we should do it now.
Okay.
Can you just kind of, because I didn't do any research about it, but I just remember you emphasizing that if we want to go straight after graduating, can you go over that?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that a little bit. Okay, so if you are a third year undergrad right now, that means you have about one more year of classes or whatever else you're taking. If you apply this summer, so okay, I'm gonna start from the very top. Early admission, if you guys are unsure of what that is, that means usually you can apply to one school very early. And I think that deadline is like really early July. If you apply in July, and this is usually your like top school, not all schools offer this. So you can apply to your like super top school. And hi, Amanda, you can apply by July and they will let you know by September. The reason that's very beneficial is because if you for some reason get a no from your top school that you early admin to, you still have time to apply to other universities by that November, December deadline. So it gives you like a 1 month kind of crunch time to get those in. Oh, they've stopped doing early admission. Okay, I'm old, so apparently I not updated, but I don't, and again, not all universities do this, so maybe double check that. But if that's then scratch that. If it's not a thing, then if so, you're third year and you apply this by this November of this year, that means you'll hear back. I don't know when you hear back by, I actually don't remember, but you'll start next August. So you applied by November of 2021, you'll start in August 2022. So you'll graduate May 2022, you'll start August 2022. Does that make sense? You'll jump right back in to school. And then the other route is you wait until right after you graduate. So you graduate May 2022, you apply by November 2022, then you hear back and you start August 2023. I really hope I got my numbers right. I don't do the best with numbers sometimes, but that sounds right to me. Brittany, does that kind of clarify a little bit?
It does. Question regarding certain courses that are required, the prereq.
Mm-hmm.
So what if by the time we apply, we have like one class that maybe we are in or we haven't completed? Can we not apply until that prereq is done?
So usually, and Natalie might be our expert on this, so she can kind of tell me if I'm wrong. From what I remember is you can have one prereq kind of undone when you're applying. That's like the max. So you have to have all your other prereqs undone in the process of applying. And the assumption is by the time they accept you, you will have already had that done. So they'll kind of double check if you actually did it. And if you're really unsure about what prereqs you need, because it is different from university to university, go to PTCAS. They have a whole PDF of every kind of PT school within PTCAS, because there are some private universities not within PTCAS and they're pretty far and few between, but they have all the universities that are PT schools, and then they have the list of prereqs required for each one. Yeah, so it depends on the program. Some schools let you have multiple prereqs in process. Okay, so some are a little bit lenient. You'll see that the private schools tend to be a bit more lenient. Our student today, she goes to Loma Linda. Like, it has the hours and everything like that in there. I think Loma Linda requires like 40 hours, but then you go to USC or Cal State Northridge and they want 200, right? Super different. So just make sure, I love Excel. When I was applying, I had an Excel sheet. I was like, okay, this university has these prereqs, needs these hours, needs this number of letters of rec, because on PTCAS, it's all separate PDFs. So I kind of squished it onto one big one. And that's how I did it. And then I threw it away because then I never applied. So I don't have it anymore, but make your own. PTCAS. So if you see Natalie in the chat, it's all caps. And that stands for something related to PT school. And I don't know what it is. But that's kind of all PT everything. That's where you apply as well.
really quickly, sorry to interject, but I don't want to break the conversation we have going, but one of our speakers is here. So I will hand it over in just a second. This is our athletic trainer, Crystal, and I'll hand it over to her to introduce herself, talk a little bit about herself and her experience, as well as, some day-to-day responsibilities or overall expectancies of what it's like to be an athletic trainer, as well as hand it over to you guys after she's done to ask any questions that you find you really need to know. So Crystal, without any further ado, please take it away.
Hello, I'm so sorry I'm late, guys. Is still in the office. But my name is Crystal Elston. I am an athletic trainer. I went to Cal State Long Beach and got my degree. I also got my master's at Long Beach. Currently, I'm working at LMU, Loyola Marymount University, and I work with their women's basketball team, their men's tennis team, and the cross country / track team. Kind of to give you an overview of a day in the life of an athletic trainer, we'll do before COVID and during COVID because it's two totally different things now. Before COVID, it was more hands-on. We go to practices, we set up for practice, we do rehabs, we do treatments, we set up doctor's appointments, we travel with our primary teams. So on a day-to-day basis, sometimes, you have your scheduled rehabs and then other things were just surprises. So, if somebody got hurt during practice, it was on the fly, take care of them, do start their rehab, start all the protocols. Now with COVID, it's a lot different. We do mostly paperwork. We do about 70% paperwork and the rest is athletic training. Because we have to fill out a lot of forms. There's a lot of check-ins. We're running COVID tests. We're communicating with other schools. I've tested on the road maybe about 5 times for this season. And there's maximums to the training room. Our facility can only hold 6 people at a time. And that's in our main athletic room. And then we have our wet room, which has our whirlpools and cold tubs that can only hold 4 people. And the athletic trainers do count as a person. So it's us plus the patients. And so it's really just trying to keep a schedule. So every day I go in the office, I got to get checked in, I got to get screened. And then I go straight to my computer and look at the appointments I have set up for that day. Also, doctor's appointments are different for us now. Before COVID, we would be in the rooms with the athletes, talking to the doctors. The athletes, they're really no help, even though it's their body. They go to the doctor, they don't know what is going on, and they don't know what to ask. So we would be there and we would ask the questions that we need to know. Now I've been on so many FaceTime calls in doctors' offices. So they'll FaceTime me and I'll be talking to the doctor and they're just sitting there going, yeah, sure. So that's a little different. We wear a lot of masks. We just got a new protocol down from our admin that we now have to wear our N95 and goggles on bus trips. So even when we get on the bus, we have to wear those. I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm not gonna wear it. I'm just go with my regular mask because I get motion sick. So there's no way in the hell I'm gonna put that on to sit in the bus with people I'm with every day. But in terms of, athletic training, it's still the same. We still get to go to the games. We still get to do the rehabs with the students. We still get to, do emergency response and all the fun stuff that makes you want to be an athletic trainer, we still get to do. But we just have a big chunk of added stuff that, really isn't that fun. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. That was a quick little overview. So whatever you guys have to ask or whatever you want to know, I'm an open book.
I actually have 2 questions for you, if you don't mind. How, after you finished and you got your, your licensing and all that stuff, how easy or how difficult was it for you to find a job as an AT?
Well, it was easy for me in the sense that, Because when you're in an athletic training program, you do a lot of internships with a lot of different people. So you do a lot of rotations, and it really depends on how well you do in your rotations. If you're a good student, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get a job. If you suck, good luck. That's the best way I can say it.
For sure.
So for me, it was pretty easy because as a student, I started working with this company called Tape Pros, and I was an intern there. And right after I graduated, I was able to be hired on as an AT. And from there, I got a connection to West Coast Sports Medicine Team to Win. And so I just started working about a month and a half after I graduated.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you do the AT program here at Long Beach?
Yes, I did.
How was that?
Well, when I was there, it was a little rough because it was more, you have to learn kind of on your own. They would present the information, and then it was up to you to kind of take that to your clinical site and really kind of learn it. Now they do a lot more hands-on teaching. So they've gotten more comprehensive with it. So I would say it's an excellent program, but you just have to know going in that you're going to have to do a lot of the work because they're going to present it to you and they're going to give you what you need. And then for you to actually be proficient in it, you're going to have to do the work to become proficient.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just a quick note, as part of the process for me getting into my master's program, while I am exercise science, I actually took a couple of athletic training courses in order to do some prereqs, and I worked with Crystal. Crystal and I actually go way, way back before that as well, but I worked with Crystal, and just phenomenal teacher and phenomenal athletic trainer. One of those people that goes above and beyond and sets, the standard of what you think of when you think of a certain industry or a certain career or field. And all that being said, she's totally right. The program is, like many other programs, constantly getting better because the professors do lay down a good curriculum, but they do also give the faith and the instill some of the skills that you would need to succeed. And as you might have already heard, the AT program at many schools, including Cal State Long Beach, is now a master's level program, a master's level degree. So that already makes your chances of knowing that much more of the content and that much more effective and that much more easy to get a job with a master's degree as an AT. So again, if you're thinking that route and you are thinking you want to stay close to Long Beach for whatever reason, it's a great choice and a great option. And again, they make great ATs like Crystal.
Thank you. And on that, with the master's degree, guys, it's going to be easier for you to get a job with a master's coming straight out. Before, it was a harder, especially, if you're trying to get into the collegiate setting, a master's degree is required. So if you're already graduating with your master's degree, it's going to be that much easier for you to get your foot into that collegiate setting. Because you already have their requirements. And, it's really, who like if you want to stay in Long Beach, the director of their program, Mimi Nakajima, she knows a lot of people, and she can, if you're a good student, say the word and she'll be like, hey, I need you to apply to this job in Utah. And you'll be like, what? She'll be like, just do it. And you'll most likely get it.
More to back when pre-COVID times were still here. How involved would you say you had to be, Crystal, in the care of athletes, not just when they're injured, but even pre-injury in that sort of prehab setting? How involved would you say you as an athlete trainer were?
Probably about 85 to 90% involved. I work a lot. Kind of a workaholic. No one knows. I work a lot. So with prehab and whatnot, I tend to like to do things on the front end. So I have a lot of programs like ACL prevention programs, bulletproof shoulder programs that I will instill in my teams so that during the season, we can still play. I hate taking people out. I absolutely hate it. If you can play, I'm going to say, okay, as long as it's safe. My rule is 80% healthy means you can go. That's just how I do it. And then also there's a big emotional and mental health aspect to the job that you kind of don't really get a big sense of it when you're in school. You have to really connect with your athletes, because if they don't trust you and they can't buy into your program, they really ain't gonna do shit. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna show up for rehab. They're not even gonna want to get taped before practices. So a lot of it is really just getting to know your coaches, getting to know your athletes, and then just being present, just always being around so that they can just stop in and talk to you. You know, that's one thing that they don't teach you, is that they will literally just come to your office to shoot the shit with you. And you could be in a meeting. They do not care what you're doing. They will just come and sit and talk as if you're not on the computer working. They don't care. And when you're traveling, they will knock on your door at midnight and tell you that they're homesick and they need you to just stay up with them. And you just do it. So you get really, really involved, because it's like a family, and you're kind of like the mom of the group, and you're just making sure everybody's okay. But you got to make sure you're okay too, because it will drive you crazy sometimes, not gonna lie. But yeah, it takes, you know, all of you. You're gonna be just immersed in it if you want to do the AT route.
I think my question on that note is, how do you balance with all the egos on a team, like on that aspect of it?
Well, with the egos on the team, they don't really come to the athletic trainer with their ego, because at that point they're hurt. And so you get mainly an angry person. You don't get an egotistical person, you get an angry person. So we're trying to balance that out. You kind of sit and watch the team dynamic. And that's why when you go to practice, that's why I love going to practice, because you can really see who's who on the team, how they actually are outside of the training room. And you have a better understanding of how to deal with them when they come into the training room. But I mean, in hindsight, you know, also you have to know that your ego is going to be the biggest one per se, because your word is kind of law. So if you say they're not playing, they're not playing. They can't get around it. So they also know that when they come to you. So they really tone it down, because they know that you kind of have their playing status in your hand. And it's not really a good idea to piss off your athletic trainer. Not.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was actually going to ask a similar question, and it kind of works well. So thank you, Dylan. So not just the players, but how, in your experience, Crystal, how well, excuse me, do coaches and even, you know, other medical staff members, like, you know, a physical therapist, or, you know, the athlete's primary physician, for example, how well do they really heed your advice and your say, and how well do they defer to you in your experience?
Coaches are always going to be tricky, because with coaches, you really have to gain their trust. And the easiest way to do that is through the players. If the players like you, the coach will like you. The players hate you, coach will hate you too. So typically I go through the players to get to the coach. And once I have the players, then I can, you know, talk to the coach a little better, you know, but beforehand, you always want to introduce yourself to the coach. You always want to just lay out what your standards are, you know, what you're about. You know, when I got to LMU, I had to talk to the women's basketball coach. And, you know, I got a sense, you know, I asked her, how do you like to be contacted? How do you like to, you know, about injuries? How involved do you want the AT to be? You know, just kind of giving her a chance. And with all your coaches, you really want to give them a chance to lay down kind of what they like. And then you have to be able to balance and work with that. And if it's something that you're not going to do, then that's when the compromise comes, and you just talk to them and be like, well, in my experience, this way works better. Like, let's try this out and let's go with it. And typically the coaches will be good. Now, it becomes tricky with the coaches when their star player has to go out. Those are the conversations where the coach is going to be blowing up your phone every 5 seconds. They want a status update. They want you to go to the doctor. They want you to fast track everything. And in those instances, for me, what I try to do, I just get ahead of it. And if I know my coach wants a status update every 5 minutes, I do it about every 3, and I give them more information than they ever would have wanted. I'll just give them full medical talk. I don't even break it down. I'm like, well, this, and they're like, I don't, what? And then at the end you go, still not cleared. Got it? So you kind of have to play them a little bit, because they trust you, but they're also testing you, because a lot of these coaches have been coaching for years. So they've seen a lot of these injuries. And so they're like, well, why does it take this person 1 week and this person 3 weeks? If you just throw a lot of medical terms at them, they won't know how to even process it. And then you can go, well, blah, 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 blah. They're still out, but blah, 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 blah. And then they'll just kind of leave you alone. If you're trying to pull out their star player in the middle of a football game, that's a little bit different. I've had many not even conversations, more like arguments, where I just got completely cursed out and yelled at by coaches because of concussions during football games. That's when you just have to stand your ground. You really can't do anything about it. There's no point in yelling back. Just stand there and go, mm-hmm. And still just hold the kid's helmet in your hand, because they're still not going in. So, you have to have tough skin with the coaches, but typically they'll mellow out. There's been many times that the coach come back and, they apologize, and I just go, okay, don't let it happen again. I mean, it will, but try to control yourself next time it happens. With other medical professionals, PTs and orthopedic surgeons, that's where the ATs have the best relationship. It's with those two, because we speak the same language, right? We can go back and forth and talk to a PT, we can talk to an ortho, and we can all be on the same page. Where we kind of run into problems is nurses, ER doctors. We have a huge problem with ER doctors. EMTs, sometimes we have a back and forth argument with EMTs, and kind of primary care physicians, because they're just general. So typically what we do, especially in the collegiate setting, is we bypass primary care. We go straight to ortho. We don't care who your primary care physician is. We have our own network of orthopedic surgeons. We have our own network of PTs that we use. So typically when you're in that setting, in a collegiate setting or a professional setting, you already have a network of doctors and physical therapists that you're going to use. And you typically don't go outside that network, because what you'll find is you can text your team doc, and get somebody an appointment same day or next day. Something that you can never do with their primary. It's just not going to work. Nurses kind of have a problem with us because, they don't think we're qualified, because they don't know what we do. A lot of people don't know what we do. So that's kind of where the problem comes in with other medical professionals, is they think because our title is athletic trainer that we train athletes. I do not train nobody at all. I am not a fitness coach, okay? I don't even believe in fitness myself. I'm not got to do no damn cardio. Absolutely not. I'm gonna sit my ass right down. No, but I can make a good rehab program. I can do that. So it's more about like just letting them know what you do and what your expertise are. And regardless of that, you're still gonna run into trouble with them. So it's more about just putting your foot down and being like, look, they need to be transported because of this, this, and this. So go ahead and load their ass up, put them in a truck and go. Okay. If I could have taken them to the hospital, I would have, but I can't. So I called you. So just come get them, please. But typically orthos and PTs, we are tight. We are the homies. Those are our friends.
I'll get you to work out again one day, Crystal, because I know you're used to. You're just lazy like me, and you don't like to. But I'll get you to do it.
100% right.
I'll get you to do it. This exercise is medicine after all.
Alcohol is medicine.
Crystal.
Sorry, guys.
Anybody else? Anybody have any questions for our amazing athletic trainer, Crystal?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, please.
So I'm sorry, I was a little late, so please forgive me if this question was already asked. But speaking of relationships, what would be the relationship status with like a strength coach when it comes to like a collegiate program? Because, you know, I know ATs do a lot of rehabilitation, but then with strength and conditioning coaches, they do a lot of that, not necessarily rehabilitation, but helping to help the rehabilitative process. So, you know, I know you said that, you know, you could with the PTs and things like that, but what's the dynamics when it comes to SNC?
So strength coaches, it really depends on the athletic trainer and what they like. I love my strength coaches. Me and my strength coaches, what I tend to do is I will look at the program that the strength and conditioning coach will make, and we'll have a meeting about what we can add and what we can take off and what would be the best for, you know, certain periods of time, like during the season, what would be best for this week or that week. And we just work together. Sometimes I will send my rehab over to the strength and conditioning coach, and I'll just be like, hey, they're going to do rehab, like their rehab exercises instead of the program. Is that okay with you? And they're like, of course, as long as they're in here. So, you know, it really depends on the ATs. Some ATs, they just kind of stay away from strength and conditioning for the most part because it is, you know, it does add more work to our schedule by, you know, trying to facilitate it and go back and forth with strength and conditioning coaches. But the ATs that really do utilize the strength and conditioning coaches, you can see their teams are a lot stronger. You know, there's a lot more preventative care that's going on, and it's just a better dynamic. So I love strength and conditioning. So it really just depends. But typically, you know, you will have ATs willing to work with strength and conditioning coaches.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was amazing. Crystal was awesome. If you like Crystal, if you have a moment, you can stick around. If not, I understand you're very busy. I will talk to you later. Everyone else, thank you so much for your questions and your interest. We do have one more speaker, and I want to give them the time that they set aside to show up and speak with us. So Dom, I'll hand it over to you. Once again, thank you so much, Crystal. We love you, and thank you for showing up.
Thank you, Crystal. If you are willing, if you could put any sort of like contact information in the chat, that would be so, so lovely. But if you don't want to get spammed with emails, we completely understand as well. So that's only if you're willing. Okay, yeah, so our next speaker is Jaylene. So Jaylene and I go way back. We met in another lifetime for me. It's when I was actually going through PT. We met on the floor of the Veterans Affairs Hospital, and we were sitting next to each other, and we were trying to volunteer at the VA, and I was trying to fill out the application, and I didn't know where I was, and I turned to her, and she's like, "Are you here for the PT?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're here for PT?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then we never saw each other again because we never worked the same shift, but we've kind of stayed in contact, and she is now in PT school now, so she's a second year at Loma Linda, and I'm just going to pass it over to her, and she's going to give you guys some information. So thanks, Jaylene.
Hey, Dom. Hey, everyone. Let me see if I can actually pull up my slides on my phone. My iPad died, so that's great. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Okay.
You're okay. It's just kind of low.
Okay, here, I'll get closer. Is that that better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I have slides, but let me see if I can pull them up. Okay, if I do this, do I disappear?
You do disappear. Do you want me to share your slides?
Okay, yes.
Okay, let me and just tell me when you want me to move on to the next one.
Okay. So we're going to talk about physical therapy today. I think when I was in your guys' shoes, I kind of had an idea of what PT was. I feel like there's a few definitions running around out there about what it is, but really we are being branded by the APTA as being a movement expert. So if you look at the picture on the screen, you have the movement system in the center, and then around it you have all of the body systems that contribute to movement. So we have endocrine, musculoskeletal, which is obviously one of the big ones, but I feel like people almost focus too much about it and kind of forget what else goes into movement. So we have cardiovascular, pulmonary, integumentary, and the last one in the corner I can't see, but nervous, obviously. But we as physical therapists have to take a look at the entire person and see what is causing someone to lack functionality and mobility. So for example, right now we're seeing how pulmonary and cardiovascular systems are affecting people from being functional with COVID. So we're seeing a lot of PTs on the COVID floor working with, doing postural draining or teaching people breathing techniques. And these are all things that I feel like kind of don't really get talked about PT. We're kind of used to the whole bridges and clams and bicep curls, but all of these things have to work together in order to be functional. So next slide, please. Thank you. So these are all the places that PTs can work. Basically anywhere where someone is getting medical attention, there will probably be a PT on staff. So outpatient clinics, I'm sure some of you have probably volunteered in these settings, but a little side note, these are generally a little less paid than some other settings because competition is incredibly high for these settings. I think a lot of people want to go into PT and they're like, I only want to work with athletes. And that's great. We do have PTs that do that, obviously, but there's like there's so many other populations that you can work in. So definitely don't try to tunnel vision yourself into just working with athletes or thinking that, it's not interesting to work with other populations. So definitely come into PT school if you're interested, just with an open mind. We obviously work in hospitals. So PTs are actually trained in doing x-ray screening. So if someone comes in, they just had a car accident, we can actually screen someone to recommend an x-ray or not. So you don't want to send everyone through an x-ray. Gives radiation also costs a ton of money. Unfortunately, we live in the United States, so not everyone has everything covered. So we're called in and we assess if they need one or not. And so we can actually evaluate a person in the emergency room. Skilled nursing facility, home health, schools, so mainly for pediatrics. So you can actually be hired by a school district and work with children in there. So if you think about what a kid is doing all day at school, they have to get from a desk to recess, from recess to the bathroom. So we have to teach them how to be functional and move in their setting. And travel, and you'll notice home health and travel have dollar signs because a lot of people don't know they get paid probably the most out of all the settings. So once again, don't come into PT school just thinking like one setting is for me and that's it. Definitely look into different settings, and if you can right now, I would really suggest to volunteer in different settings because you never know, you might be surprised you find something that you really like. The next slide, please. So these are all the official physical therapy specialties, and there's obviously a lot of certifications that you can get alongside your degree, but these are the official ones recognized by the APTA. So I wanted to highlight a few. Women's health. So if you think about how we treat women in the medical field, especially after they have given birth, We don't typically see that for some reason as an athletic event, and it is. So as PTs, we actually have to work with women and restore function in the pelvic floor. They're also called pelvic floor physical therapists because obviously everyone has one, not just women. But there's such a difference on how we treat someone, let's say with like an Achilles tendon rupture versus giving birth. For some reason, one patient you get to rest for 6 weeks and then you're automatically sent back to work and you're expected to be functional, right? But for someone else, for an Achilles tendon rupture, we're like, you need surgery, you need medicine, you need rehab. And so definitely look into women's health. I think it's really interesting. I'm really passionate about it myself. So a really great field, and wound management is really cool too. It's kind of gross. But physicians aren't actually the only ones that can hold a scalpel. So as PTs, we're actually trained in wound care. So you'll learn this in school, and obviously you guys know this, but obesity and uncontrolled diabetes are on the rise. And so this population is really prone to getting wounds. And so we actually obviously have to work with them in getting their diabetes under control and working with wounds. For example, if you think about a burn patient and how their skin kind of becomes contracted, right? You can't be moving with skin that is not elastic, right? So we work in that as well. So also a really cool field to go into. Next slide for me. I wanted to add this in here because I feel like there's a little bit of arrogancy when it comes to physical therapy. Like, we're hotshot doctors, right? We don't get paid that much, but you know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, and obviously you are, but I just want to emphasize you actually don't run the show. You are actually just part of the rehab team. We work with a lot of different people. Like Crystal said earlier, we work with AT, we work with OT, speech language pathologists. If a patient has had a stroke, PT works on getting them from a bed to a wheelchair, and we're working on transfers, right? How functional would you think someone would be after a stroke if all they can do is just get from bed to wheelchair? So we need OT to teach them how to feed themselves, how to dress, things like that. And OT is actually being transitioned into a doctorate program because I feel there's always this kind of like battle between OT and PT is like, oh, one is better than the other because one is a doctor and one isn't. That's not necessarily going to be the case because by 2027, they're actually going to be required to be a doctorate level program. So we're all going to be on the same playing field one day. But you really have to learn how to rely on different disciplines. You don't know everything, but you are good at physical therapy. That's the good part. And then obviously, yeah, we already talked about speech language pathologists, but we obviously work with physicians as well and nurses. So you have to be prepared to learn from these different disciplines. And next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to include this slide too because I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. I know Dom is like super into financial health, right? And I am too. So the average physical therapist salary is $85,000. That is average. That is probably not what you're going to make straight out of school. So be realistic on how much we're making. The average cost of a public school tuition is going to be around $30,000 a year, and for private, it's going to be around $50,000 a year. They tell you one price on the paper when you get in, but they will probably charge you up the wazoo when you're actually in the program. So yeah, just keep in mind these numbers are just very average. And so be prepared. There is going to be a lot of debt accrued when you're in the program. So just keep that in mind. Keep in mind that we don't make that much, but we have to take out a lot more debt than we make in a year. So my biggest advice to people is to try to get into a school that is close enough to you that you can maybe commute from home. That's what I'm doing right now. Obviously, I probably don't want to live with my parents, but I get free rent. And I live like 30 minutes from school, so I'm saving a lot of money not paying rent. Obviously, super privileged of me to say that I live really close to school, but if you can, try to pick a program that is close to you or get into a state school. Cal State Long Beach has a PT school, so get into there. And just be realistic of the salaries that we make and do your math. And my little soapbox is it doesn't matter about the name of the school. I know that's probably burning your ears right now because when I was in your shoes, I only wanted to go to USC, right? Because they're number one, they're the top, right? And that's in my head, I was like, oh, that's the only way I can be the best physical therapist is to go to the best school. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because we're all going to get the same degree. And when you're treating that patient, do you think they really care where you went to school? Not really. They just want to get feeling better and for you to do your job correctly. And every PT school is going to teach you all the basics. And that's the other thing too. PT school is not going to teach you everything that there is to know. I think that was kind of a shock for me to hear that was like, oh, you don't learn everything? No, you actually just learn the basics to get hired and pass the board. So a lot of your learning is going to come after school. So I don't know. Don't go to the school just for the name. Really make sure it's a program that is affordable, that is in line with what you want. And yeah, and then I think I have one more slide. Okay, so you've gone through the application process, you've got in. I wanted to put this in here because PT school is going to kick your butt. It's hard, but definitely don't let it be your life. I know this is easier said than done, but try to keep your relationships that you had before school while you're in the program because those people helped you get into this program. And so obviously you just don't want to like ditch them or anything like that. Mental health and physical health are incredibly important. You can't keep pouring from an empty cup. So you can't keep giving and expecting good results if you're constantly not getting enough sleep, not eating right, not exercising, obviously. I feel like right now, I could have heard this in undergrad, but it's actually not healthy for you to pull an all-nighter for a test. It's not worth it, honestly. So definitely start practicing healthy habits now because you just don't want to be burned out in school. And the other thing is not everything is going to come naturally to you. This is also something I wish I knew in PT school because I thought, oh, I got into PT school, so I'm like immediately the best. You're not. I had to learn communication skills. I had to learn how to study better because undergrad is just a totally different experience. So don't expect everything to come naturally to you and just celebrate the big and small wins. And just remember, experience is the best teacher. So the time after you graduate and you work is the time that you're really learning. And I think that was everything I wanted to say. So here's my contact information if anybody wanted to reach out to me. Unfortunately, I can't review PT apps because I just don't have the time, but I really wish I could because they're so interesting. But there's my email and there's my Instagram if you guys want to reach out to me for anything.
Thank you so much, Jaylene. That was so awesome. I wish I would have heard that when I was in undergrad. I mean, the let's be real slide, like that got me because it's so true. Like I have talked to a lot of people who go to USC, and I know one or two physical therapists who finished up at USC, and they're like, dude, I'm in so much debt, and for what? So yeah, absolutely don't consider the school for just the name. So many good slides, so many good slides. So yeah, I will actually email out those slides to you and you guys can have them if you guys want them. So that'll be in our wrap up email. So don't feel like you need to take notes or anything, but I'm going to open up the floor for any questions you guys may have for Jaylene.
I think my question is when you're looking for a school to apply to that you're like, this is my number one pick, other than like the costs or like living situations, what other things were in the back of your mind of like what your first pick would be?
I think for me, vision statement is pretty important. Try to meet with faculty or try to get in contact with the chair of the program and try to have a meeting with them maybe if you can or just via email, to see kind of like who's running the program, what the personality is behind the school, would really help. Um, and maybe try to talk to other students that have attended that school and try to figure out what the environment of that school is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Come on, we have a lot of pre-PT students out here. You guys gotta have questions.
Okay, this is Brittany. So regarding paying for it, that's totally, I'm glad you put that in there because it's totally real. And right now, my current stage of life, that's what I'm doing. Number one, it's gonna happen. But then I'm like, oh, wait, I don't have that much money. And I know that, of course, loans is like the number one thing that we think about. But in your experience, what are other ways to be able to help with funding?
So I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have a job in college until my last semester. But I do work like side gigs here and there. So I walked, well, pre-pandemic, I walked dogs for money, and I also work for Instacart. So if you can, like, this program that I'm in, I wouldn't. I know some of my friends have part-time jobs. I think that's. I don't know if I could do that myself, because I just need a break, and I don't want to be clocking in and studying at the same time. But you can definitely do that. The main way that we fund ourselves, though, is through loans. So know what loans you're getting yourself into. Obviously, the cheapest ones are going to be from the federal government. So if you can, avoid private loans as much as you can because their interest rates are crazy. Try to take out as much as you need. So the school is going to offer you max. They're going to be like, you need $20,000 for this year. Not really. They just want to get your money. Try to budget with yourself and be realistic on how much you're actually spending a month and just borrow that amount. And like I said, just pick up jobs here and there. For me, I'm starting to chip away at the mountain of debt that I've gotten myself into, little by little, like $20 a month here and there if I can. Christmas, I got some Christmas money that went to loans. So yeah, your main way of funding is going to be through loans, unfortunately. But before you even go into the program, make sure that you have a budget and make sure that you actually sit down with yourself and you're like, how much do I want to spend a month on paying back these loans? Because it's quicker than you think. It's only 6 months of grace period, and then you have to pay them back. And it's not like $500 or anything like that. It's going to be almost $2,000 a month that you're going to be asked to pay on top of everything else that you have to pay for to obviously live. So rent, food, gas. So just be mindful of that. Yeah.
On that same note, sorry, Brittany, to cut you off. For volunteering, I know some programs have like the minimum requirements and then what the max is, and then after that, they don't really like, it's not a pro and it's not a con. What would you say that we shoot for volunteering hours in between that?
That's kind of a hard question because I feel like I'm not on the admissions committee, so I have no idea how I even got in. But I would honestly say that getting the minimum is fine to get in. I've heard some of my classmates got the minimum and they got in. That's fine. I would pick settings that are interesting to me because in your interview, they're going to ask about your experiences. So getting 1,000 hours just of cleaning tables is not as valuable as getting 100 hours with cancer patients. So just think about that when you're applying to volunteer. VA is a great place to volunteer at. I know that they kind of pointed that out in my application, that they really liked that I volunteered at the VA. I mean, all I did was kind of clean tables, but I could pull from experiences that I had from there working with a prosthetic team, for example, and being able to work in inpatient were all things that I could have said in my interview.
Jaylene was an overachiever with her hours, so she's not qualified for this question. We met and she was like, I already have 200. I was like, but I have 0. Like, what? But I mean, kind of just to bank on that, yeah, spreading out your hours amongst different clinics is really good, but you really don't need more than the minimum, kind of like she was saying. That's what I recommend as well.
Okay. So adding on to that then, if I were to like finish the minimum requirements for working, do you think my new priority is to start getting a job to help me pay off the debt for the future? Like, for instance, like this upcoming summer, like I could have been trying to put in like volunteer hours, but like one of my best friends gave me an opportunity to go out to Tampa and sell door-to-door sales, which makes really good money in a short amount of time. And so what do you guys think about that?
I would say once you get in, your first priority is to take a break because you might not see one when you're in the program. And yeah, make money with your friend, but also don't forget to have fun because you're in Tampa, right? Have fun in Tampa, bro.
Yeah.
Like you deserve it. Like once you got in, you deserve it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
I had a question. So, how is COVID affecting your experience? Because when I talk to some people about applying now, they're just like saying how they want to wait because they didn't know if like COVID's affecting or making it worth it to go.
Yeah, the beginning was definitely difficult for me, just like being sent home and you're just like, I seriously have to just sit in Zooms all day. You just learn to adjust, honestly. I mean, I don't even remember what regular school was like anymore. Overall, I would say my experience has been pretty positive. With COVID, I feel like I don't know if you guys are like me at all, but I'm such an introvert. So having to sit in lectures all day was just so draining to me. Like we would sit in lectures all day from 8 to 5. And now that we have Zooms all day, it's like I can put the lecture on 2 times speed and get it done in like less time and then do what I actually want to do throughout the day. And I can really make my own schedule and pace myself, like how I like to pace myself. So that's a plus, but that's just me. I know some of the other people in my class absolutely hate it. So it really depends. But in the beginning of when this whole thing started, we weren't allowed to have labs. And that was kind of killer because you're like, how the heck am I supposed to learn? Just like practicing on a pillow at home. But we've gotten better. The County of San Bernardino has let us resume in-person labs. So they're cut down a little bit shorter, but we are still able to have that lab time. So obviously not that much, but yeah, you just learn to adjust. There's pros and cons.
Thank you.
Jaylene, can you kind of talk about like what your day-to-day life is as a PT student? You said you were in class from 8 to 5, which is like a ridiculous amount of time. Like what was the rest of your day like?
Okay, so Loma Linda, I don't know if you guys have heard of the program. Anatomy is the first class you're going to take. It's a 7-week intensive course and you go from 8 to 5 lecture. 8 to 10 is lecture, and then from 10 to 12 is a lab, the cadaver lab, and then you have a lunch, and then you go back to lecture, and then you finish your day off in lab. For anatomy, our requirement was to stay into the program was 85%. So 85 to survive is the saying here, but you needed to get an 85 to pass anatomy, and if you didn't, you were kicked out. So those days we were here till like 12 a.m. studying. But anatomy is like a totally different class. The other, like once we got into our more regular classes, it wasn't that bad. It really depends on the week. Midterms week, we're studying all the time, but leading up to midterms week, like, dude, just take a break. Like, take a drive to the beach, like whatever. You don't have to study like all the time. I know some people love to study all the time. I'm just like, how do you do that? Like I forget what I studied like a couple weeks ago. So I'm a crammer, but don't listen to me. But yeah, it really depends on the week. In the morning, I will try to, with Zoom, I will try to get all of my lectures done in the morning. I'll try to get everything done by Monday and Tuesday, lecture-wise, and then the rest of the week, I'm kind of like planning out like when I'm gonna study or just like reviewing my notes, things like that. It's not like super hardcore studying like before a test, or just like getting ready for lab and stuff like that.
Nice. I have a couple other like general questions if no one has any. Okay, so you went straight into PT school right after undergrad, if I remember. What was the transition like from undergrad at Cal State Fullerton Kinesiology to PT school? I guess minus anatomy, because that sounds super intense. What did you include it?
Dude, it was kind of rough because in undergrad, you know, to be pre-PT or whatever, you're almost like on top of the world, kind of. You feel like, oh my God, like I'm so good. Like I got into PT school, and then you get here and you're like, actually, I'm there are so many people in this program that are so smart. It's crazy. I'm just like, how did I get in? I have no idea. So that transition was hard because it's like, damn, like you don't like immediately get A's on every single test. Like, what do you mean? That's insane. So at Loma Linda, at least, I know it's different for other programs. To get an A, you need a 95, which is really high. And if it's only a 50 question test, you can only miss like a couple. So it's like intense. So it's a humbling experience. I will say that. Yeah.
And then how did you kind of cope with that? Like, I know a lot of people, when I talked about PT school, they had like a group of people that was really solid, and that's like who got you through PT school. Do you feel like you have that, or how did you get through it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I have my group of friends, but really, like they say, comparison is the thief of joy. There are going to be gunners in your class that are like, I got an A on every single test, like whatever. It doesn't matter because honestly, like I don't know what program I'm going to be applying to after this, but I don't plan on going back to school. But honestly, like grades matter. You have to pass, obviously. But if you feel comfortable and confident in the material and you feel like, you know what, some test questions are like BS, like whatever. Just don't worry about your grades. Like worry about like this type of therapist that you're becoming, because you're not going to be treating a patient. You're like, oh, I got an A and blah blah blah. Did you know that? Like that's so weird. Like focus on other aspects that make you a good therapist, like communication, manual skills, things like that. Like sure, the written material and stuff like that is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's not everything. And that's a little bit different from undergrad where it was everything, right? Like your GPA was everything. But now it's like, dude, that doesn't matter. If you are like a straight A student and you get into the clinic and you don't know how to talk to someone, you're in big trouble. So it's definitely a mind shift. You have to train yourself to want to be more rounded.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. I mean, especially in like the healthcare professional field, that's for kind of anything goes. I'm sure Crystal, you can attest to that too. Like if you can't talk to your athletes, like it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're wrapping up. So unless you guys have any other questions, I'm hoping Crystal and Jaylene can stick around for a little bit, but for the rest of you guys, you are free to go. Keep in mind, our next event is a grad school Q&A. So Jaylene won't be back, but we will have two other PT students, one from Cal State Long Beach and then one from Chapman. So like she recommended, really getting a feel of what the vibe is like at those universities might really give you some more insight on that. So hope to see a couple of you there. For those of you who aren't PT or AT, there's med school students, there's me as a grad student, and then there's more HD applicants. So definitely come and check those out. I think that's it, guys. So if you guys don't have any questions, you're good to go. And the rest of you guys, hang tight, I guess, and go ahead and say your questions.
Sorry, for the Q&A, are you going to send us like a reminder when that is?
Yeah, so we send an email every day before the event. And so you guys should get that. And then if you have us on Instagram, it's usually posted right then and there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming.
So I think real quick, uh, so did you feel like even though when you're in PT school, there's like so much pressure because the classes are more difficult and you're trying to achieve like an A, but an A is at like 95, you're saying. Even though that's the case, like, did you feel less pressure because, like you were saying, you weren't fighting to get into a PT school anymore, you got in, or was it just like a different kind of pressure?
That's a good question. For me, I had to step back and be like, who the heck is putting the pressure on me? It's just me in my own head. The PT school is different because you're obviously training to be a healthcare professional, and you learn to look at the material a little bit differently. Like, you have to learn how to apply it to someone and to a situation, and it's not always just going to be like, I'm going to memorize everything and then regurgitate it on the test like it is in undergrad, where you like memorize all this random crap and you're just like, I don't even know what I'm memorizing. In PT school, you have to learn it a little bit differently, because it's like, okay, so now that I know this, how the heck do I apply it clinically? And that's like the biggest difference. So, I mean, it's hard because, like, obviously, we're all kind of the same here. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and so it's a little bit difficult to be just like, oh, not putting pressure on yourself. You're gonna have to learn, like, to choose your battles of, like, is it really worth like getting all, I don't know, emotional about this test or whatever. And yeah, just grades aren't everything too. So I know that's hard to hear, like, as an undergrad, where you're like, dude, I need to get an A and everything. Like, not really. like I said before, like, you need to practice being well-rounded and need to practice like your own health as well, because if you're just like totally wrapped up in grades and stuff like that, like, you just won't be as an effective clinician.